in on this one. This is the basics for a new popcorn chair or chairs for units that either have new chairs or people that just want to get a good question and answer. We have Rachel Lambert here, who is the district popcorn chair for Algonquin District, and myself and John Harding. And I believe Grant Burnett is on the call here somewhere, even though he only has limited information because he's only 5 days old. So, yeah. but yeah, so we'll leave it up to Rachel, and we'll get this going. If you guys have any questions, put them in the chat box. Otherwise, the marketing your link sale led me here. Oh, interesting. Well, let me, I'll put a thing in the chat box for that if that's happening to other people. Oh, maybe hold on. I almost just went to that thing. Hold on.
I've got it, Chris.
Okay.
You good?
Yeah, sorry, go ahead. I did not foresee that being an issue. So sorry about that, Jim.
Okay, hi everybody. I am Rachel Lambert. I, as Chris said, am the popcorn chair for the Algonquin District. I've been with Scouting for about 10 years now in various positions through PATS, Troops, and Crews. And I'm here to talk with you guys about the basics of being a popcorn chair. I know some of you, I noticed, I've seen you on lots of the other trainings. I attended some of the other trainings throughout the day. So I'm hoping we can have a conversation maybe at some point towards the end. We can unmute and ask questions. I'd love to see your faces. I like to talk to people. I feel your pain. I don't like to see my face on here either, but it's always much more enjoyable during a virtual thing when you can at least see people's faces. That's my preference. So if you don't mind me seeing your face, I'd love to see it up here on my screen this afternoon. So some of the things that I want to start with are just making sure that you know what your resources are before we go into the popcorn season, and knowing how to find them and use them. Popcorn can be very overwhelming if you're doing it by yourself, especially if you're in a unit that does a lot of sales and if you're a new popcorn chair. And for a lot of people, when you're coming in to be a new popcorn chair, maybe that old popcorn chair has moved on and they're not necessarily there to use as a resource as much as we would like them to be as a new chair. So make sure that you know where to find your resources at. Every district, I think every district right now has a district popcorn chair. You can find their contact information on the website, phone numbers, and I think maybe email addresses. I know phone numbers are on there. So make sure you reach out to us if you have questions or need help with something. That's why we're here. We're here to help you if you need help with a kickoff or you need help putting together budgets or anything like that. Just reach out to us so we can help you. You have, of course, the district executives, but they have so many jobs that a lot of times it's a little more difficult for them to get to those meetings and really do like some one-on-one assistance as much as they try. So make sure you reach out to us. There's the Kernel Guidebook that you have access to through the app and through the website. So make sure that you know where that is and that you've maybe saved a copy of that to have handy or printed out a copy to be able to reference whenever you need it. And then on the Trails End website, there is, oh look, John is doing his screen sharing. There's the guidebook. That's a really useful tool. It has all of the information you're going to need for the sales on it from Trails End. Gives all of their information, how to make accounts, a checklist to make sure that you've gone through everything you need to go through. Here's the table of contents. So that you can kind of get an idea of what all is in there. The rewards information, all of that information that you need is in that guidebook. So make sure that you have found the guidebook and reviewed it and know where to find the information that you're looking for in there. That's going to be your quick go-to. That's like your, popcorn how-to this year. So make sure that you're taking a look at this and familiarizing yourself with all of it. It has the support@trailsend.com email on there. If you're having issues with Trails End, they're really pushing this year for the popcorn kernels to reach out to Trails End themselves through the support email. With everything being online, there's a lot less that the volunteers and even the district executives can do or have answers to. Most of that they're going to have to go back to Trails End themselves. So it would be quicker for you to just go to Trails End yourself and kind of cut out that middleman and get the answers that you're looking for. Save some time. I know, Chris and Grant and Abby, they have a lot on their plates. So sometimes getting, 20 people asking questions that they're having to go back to Trails End, that takes up a lot of time, and it's going to take them a lot of time to get back to you. So using that email there is going to cut out a lot of time just on that, return, and making sure you get the information you need so that you can update your parents as soon as you can. With that, also make sure that you have other parents in your unit that you can reach out to for help. Popcorn's a big job, and it can really be overwhelming if you're doing it completely by yourself. So make sure you have some other leaders in the unit that you can lean on to help with things, especially if you're new, to help take some of that initial stress off of you. We don't want popcorn chairs up till 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning trying to figure out inventory issues or something like that, when a lot of times just having a fresh pair of eyes, it's going to take 10 minutes to find whatever it is you're looking for. But you've been looking at these numbers for days. Your eyes aren't fresh anymore. It's all kind of running together. So make sure you have some other people that you can count on. Don't try to be Superman. Everybody wants to be Superman, but we need to make sure that we're using the resources around us and not burning ourselves out on popcorn in the 2 months that we're selling it, not being good, for the rest of the year. You want to make sure that we can maintain that energy, because it's really important. The unit is going to be driven off of the energy the adults have for popcorn. So if you're getting tired of popcorn and if you are overwhelmed and you can't bring that energy to the scouts and to the families, it's going to be really hard to have a good popcorn sale that year. So make sure that you are utilizing resources and not burning yourself out too quick into the sale, because you need that energy. You are the driver for your unit sales. And that's a heavy load to carry. And so you need to make sure that you are on top of it and you are out there with a smile on your face and a pep in your voice, ready to drive everybody to sell that popcorn. I know we're not going to have as much inventory this year, but there is still going to be inventory. And it's probably, I would say this year, going to be maybe even a little bit more important to have that accountability for the inventory that you're going to have. As families are checking out popcorn, because there are still going to be families who want some physical popcorn to sell, knowing the risks to sending physical popcorn with people. And then, what if your committee should have a plan? What if they get sick and now they want to return this popcorn? How are we going to handle that? If their household is quarantined, at what point do we accept the popcorn back from them? You should have a plan ahead of time. Make sure that you're ready for that. Know how much you're going to be giving to families ahead of time. That's really important. And I know the orders haven't gone in yet, so a lot of you probably don't know exactly how much product you're going to have yet. But once you figure that out, it's going to be really important to know what kind of inventory you want to pass out. Do you want to do kits? Do you want families to say, here's what I want to sell? I recommend kits. Kits are easy. You know what everybody started out with. It's a little easier to track that way, even with the smaller inventory. If you know what you're giving to everybody to begin with, it makes it a little easier to track it and know where things are and how much you have out at any given point in time. And be knowledgeable. Make sure you've read through everything. Nobody expects you to have all of the answers, especially right in the beginning of the popcorn sale. but they want you to know how to get the answers. So again, go back to your resources, have those things handy so when they ask you questions, you can get back with them. And I know a lot of units aren't doing in-person meetings right now, so it's going to be virtual. So that means the parents aren't going to have a meeting to come to you once a week or every other week and ask you their questions or say, hey, this weird thing happened. So it's going to be extra important during this time that your parents have a way to get a hold of you, whether you prefer email or you prefer text or phone calls or whatever. I don't know, there's 500 different ways to reach people electronically now. Whatever way it is that you prefer, make sure that you're communicating that with your families, because they're going to have questions. And if you're not having in-person meetings, it's going to be really important that you are responding to them as quickly as you can, because there could be sales on the line and they're waiting on those answers to be able to make sales. So just make sure that you make yourself available as much as you can, especially for the new families, because they're coming into this and they're just as new as you are. If you're a new popcorn chair, I mean, you have a little more experience. I'm hoping it's not your first year in scouting, and you have at least maybe made it through a sale, but they're going to have a lot of questions and concerns about popcorn. And so it will be very important that your unit has a game plan and has a process, and that all of your leaders are on board with how your unit is going to push popcorn and what that's going to look like. And share with your committee members what the plans are. Make sure that your committee knows what's going on and everybody's on board and has the basic knowledge of what's happening in popcorn this year. That will help you out tremendously. If, you know, I'm the committee chair and you're the popcorn chair, and maybe they lost your number, but they found mine and they call me, maybe it's a really basic question that I can answer and it saves you just a little bit of time. So make sure that everybody is on the same page and all of your leaders are really bringing that energy for the popcorn and are excited about it and talking very positively about the popcorn experience this year. It can be very easy in the times that we're in for it to kind of get a little rough and maybe to not have that excitement that we usually have. But this year especially, it's going to be important to bring a little extra enthusiasm and some extra energy to all of those popcorn pushes. We're going to need that this year. I know, so wagon sales. Wagon sales, there are going to be some scouts who choose to do wagon sales. We need to make sure if they're doing wagon sales that the parents know for the Cub Scouts, especially, not to send them out alone. They need to have a parent with them. We don't ever want scouts walking around their neighborhoods without an adult with them, especially as they're going up onto porches and knocking on doors. And if you have a couple of scouts who live close together and they're wanting to do that together, we need to make sure that the parents remember 2 deep leadership, especially with the units that are maybe doing more virtual stuff. If you're not together, you have less opportunities to push that 2 deep leadership with the new families. But it's really easy for me to take my son and his buddy out to sell popcorn and then I'm the only one with them. 2 deep leadership, when you're selling popcorn, you are a scout. You are following the scouts rules. You need to have your masks, your hand sanitizer, and your 2 deep leadership. It's easy to forget about that during popcorn time. It's easy to have one adult with them, but it's really important to make sure that we remember that 2 deep leadership going into popcorn season. Just because we're out in public doesn't mean that we should relax any of our safety rules. That's something I've seen happen, you know, quite a bit over the years. It's just easy to forget when you're going out to do those kinds of things. Scripts. I was not able to attend all of them. There was one I know on the Scouts selling. It's really important that the Scouts have a really good script. Walking up and saying, do you want to buy popcorn from me? Isn't very effective. No, nobody wants to buy popcorn from me, especially right now when people might have money that's tight. but supporting an adventure or supporting a young scout in doing something that means something to them has a completely different energy to it than you want to buy some popcorn. So make sure that when you're going in to do your popcorn kickoffs and all those things, that you have a good script, maybe even 2 or 3 different scripts. Maybe you have a script for the younger kids who can't memorize quite as many words, and then a script for the older kids that's a little more detailed. Because anybody who's been in scouting for a while knows that as the scouts get older, they no longer have that cute factor. You know, now they're little men and they can't smile at you and you feel bad about saying no. So they need to have a richer script than some of those younger kids need, because they're capable of having that richer script. So make sure that they're talking about the adventures and the things like that that they're going to be doing that really make the person want to invest in the scout. The popcorn is just the vessel that we're using to support the scout. So we don't want my 15-year-old son, well, he'll be 16 by the time he's selling popcorn. We don't want my 16-year-old son knocking on a door asking if you want to sell popcorn, because they're going to look at him like he's crazy and send him on his way. But if he's saying, hey, I really want to go to this camp and I really want to be able to go have this adventure, then they're more likely to help support him that way. So you might try some different scripts for some different age groups and help to find that one that really works for that kid. Because while there are scripts that we can put out there and say these are the best scripts to use, not every child at every age is capable of memorizing that big script that we're going to say is the best script to use. So kind of try to modify that so that, you know, if you have a kindergartner or a first grader that's going out, they don't have a whole paragraph. They may not be capable of memorizing that paragraph. So kind of whittle that down and help the parents to learn the script and understand why that's so important. The parent buy-in, the kid is not going to say the script if the parent doesn't understand why it's important and push the child to do the script. So practice the scripts with the kids. Make sure you have your parents on board and on the same page, and that they understand why the scripts are so important, because they really do make a huge difference. I can speak from experience. I've been selling popcorn for 10 years. We've had rough years and we've had some really great years. And the script really does make a big difference. I have a son, he's not going to say the script if his life depends on it. It doesn't matter what I say to him. He will not say it. And then he complains because he doesn't sell as much popcorn as his brothers do. I can't help that. You won't say the script. It really does make a big difference. Just across my own kids, I've seen it when I have one that refuses to say the script. So find something that works for your scouts for their ages and teach it to them, practice it, make it fun, make some kind of game out of the script so that you can really get them engaged in memorizing it. Because that'll make a big difference in your overall popcorn sales. Look, I have all these notes on here. Remember when the kids are selling that we are selling popcorn to build a program, but also to build our scouts. The character that these boys learn from selling popcorn isn't something you can teach in a classroom. It's not something even as a parent you can easily teach. The ability to go out and speak to people and sell things and take no gracefully is a skill that is very important to build in our youth to help them to be effective adults. And it's really hard to teach your own kid how to take no gracefully from you. It doesn't work that well. So, you know, make sure the parents know that this isn't just about making money. This is part of building our scouts' character. This is part of what scouts is about. It is teaching them those social skills, even when we're in the middle of a pandemic and they can't be as social as they want to be. They are still learning those social skills, still learning how to take no gracefully, still understanding how to communicate and sell things. And I mean, that's when you go to a job interview later in life, you're selling yourself. That's what you're doing. That's your goal. We are teaching them how to sell popcorn so that later on they have those skills that they need that will translate into other places in their life. So make sure the parents understand that the popcorn's not just about the popcorn. The popcorn isn't even just about the money. It's about building a program to continue to work on the character building for our boys, and that the popcorn itself is a character building activity that is a very important one when you look at the purpose of Scouts in general, to help these boys and teach them and raise good, productive grown-ups. They're girls too. I know. I'm sorry. I'm still working on that. The children, the Scouts, teaching them to be productive members of society later. These are all skills that they're going to need, and they are just as important as all of those other skills that they're going to learn. Did you guys, are there any trainings today that you weren't able to attend that you wish you had gotten information from, or questions that you have after you watched something and then maybe you thought about it later and it was too late to ask a question? You can type it in the chat box. Feel free to unmute yourself and talk. I know that, you know, some of them were kind of overlapping, so maybe missing one was there was information you wished you'd have gotten there, or just questions you have that weren't answered by any of the trainings today.
Rachel, I have a question. I think you might be able to help me since you're here in Vincennes. Okay, so I get online and I order a certain amount of popcorn for my pack.
Mm-hmm.
Now what? Where's that popcorn coming from, and where's that popcorn going to go, and how do I get it there?
So when you order the popcorn for the unit, we will have a distribution day in September. And so what happens is all of the popcorn comes on a truck to one place, and then some volunteers get together and we separate it into each unit. And then we have a set time that the units come and pick up their popcorn.
Oh, so I will come to you and pick up my popcorn.
Yes.
I'm not ordering necessarily setting up a place for it to show up.
Right.
Okay.
Distribution for show and sell will be the 22nd, I believe. And then honestly, I can't off the top of my head remember what the November date is right now for the take order. I want to say it's like the 18th or something.
That'll have to be confirmed with Trails End.
Right.
We've had some shifting with Trails End on the time period of what our calendar had from when we ordered it versus when they can get it to us. They're asking for more time than they ever had before. So they're going from 2 weeks to now they want 3 weeks in order to fulfill our order. So we're a little bit concerned about advertising our November timeline yet. But let's get through September 1st.
All right, so in September, that popcorn is coming to that centralized location. I'm picking up just the popcorn for my pack, right?
Yes.
Yes.
And then I take that and I'm going to put it in my basement or wherever I'm going to store it.
Yep.
Divvy that out to the people. All right, I can do this.
Yep.
Yeah, so it'll come all to Evansville, originally from Trails End, and then we as the council will get it out to the different districts. Right now, if you are in the Lincoln Heritage District, we are concerned with your guys' distribution site, something we're working on. However, for our district, there's an issue. Maybe we've done KCARC for the last however long. There may be an issue there. We have a backup site, which is the National Guard Armory off of Willow. And then Evansville is generally at Warehouse Services down there, which is on the north side. And I think it's off 41, right?
So yeah, so let's talk for a little bit about picking up your product. You need to, you got to be careful with how much you touch product. Okay. So if you can minimize the number of touches a product container has, the safer everybody is going to be. Okay. You need to look at the COVID protocols regarding social distancing, facial coverings, volunteer participation, all those components that we've kind of taken for granted in the past. You need to plan those mechanics ahead of time. So for instance, if you pick up the product at 7 o'clock on Tuesday night, do you have a place to put the product that night or the next 2 days before you attempt to start distributing it to families? Or are you going to be able to do it the next day? Those are connections that you should make now. There is no chocolate product in these items that you're going to be getting in September. So they should be relatively safe from heat. But we really don't recommend putting them in a giant oven when it's 95 degrees outside and cooking it again, the second time. So trying to be cautious with the product care is part of your responsibility too. You don't want to melt the caramel corn, so it's a giant glob, okay? So those are some of the protocol points that you need to consider. You know, you've got different people that are talking that cardboard may retain the COVID virus possibly. Well, everybody walks out of their cars, they mask up, they all get the hand sanitizer out, and they do that before you start unloading vehicles and that type of thing, or putting product in somebody else's vehicle. That's a polite way to handle it. That's the way to handle it, you know. Those are things that you ought to talk about with your other volunteers in your unit.
Does anybody else have anything they missed from earlier trainings today, or things that weren't answered, or questions they thought of later they didn't get a chance to ask? Popcorn is going to look very different this year, but the opportunities that are there for prizes, the opportunities that are there for the online sales, people are so used to buying everything online at this point. I mean, there are people who haven't bought anything anyway except online for months. So this should be a really easy transition for most of your customers to make. This should be something that just seems natural to them this year because that's the way everything else is going.
Rachel, you said something about kits, and I know we sold kits last year to get started. Is that something that's predetermined by Trails In, or do we just create our own kits?
No, that is a unit by unit basis. It really depends on how much popcorn the unit has and how many scouts the unit has. You might look at, you know, like sometimes you have, if you have this year, there won't be that much popcorn. So it might be everybody gets 3 of everything because that might fit for your unit versus your inventory. But you're really going to have to look at scout quantity versus inventory of product and decide what works for your unit. There isn't really a one size fits all just because the units they vary in so many different ways. But I would definitely make that something that you discuss with the committee and that be a committee decision. Because ultimately, when those parents take that popcorn, they are responsible for that popcorn. So you're going to want to make sure that whatever quantity you're sending out, everybody's comfortable with that being there. Because if anything happens to that popcorn, you still have to pay for it, no matter what. So when you're putting together kits and you're thinking about, especially this year starting out without having really any idea of what's going to happen with those in-person sales and the wagon sales and those things, I would suggest you err on the side of caution. And then you also don't want popcorn going into a home and they say, oh, we're going to sell all of this popcorn. And it goes into the home and they've got this huge kit and then one of them gets sick. And now their house is quarantined and now they can't sell that product. And so now they're saying, well, we couldn't do anything for 2 weeks, so we need to return this product. And are you going to accept product from a house that has had the virus? How is your unit going to deal with that? Are you going to accept that back? What is the safety risk to any other scout that might get that product to sell or to you taking that product back? So I would really be cautious in your handing out of the product this year and start with very small kits just to, again, minimize how many people are coming into contact with that product and what the risks are to everybody involved if that product has to move hands several times. I know like your unit in the past has done, I'm going to give you this and you bring it back on Friday and I'll redistribute it. That would not be ideal this year. It, you know, I understand the purpose of that in the past, but this year, that's not going to be the ideal situation. You're going to want to give people popcorn, and whatever you give them, you expect them to sell. You don't want to have to touch that popcorn again. It should touch your hands, it should touch their hands, and it should touch their customers' hands. That's really as far as it should go. So you're going to want to sit down with your committee and really have a plan in place for not just a typical scenario, but absolutely for the worst case scenario this year, just to be sure.
There's a new feature that's in the app, and that is it would permit a parent to make the payment to the unit using a credit card.
Yes.
It is less cash passing from one hand to another. And if you're a popcorn kernel, if you've counted $5,000 worth of dollar bills, your hands are filthy dirty when you're done, okay? And if you can do it cashless, that's preferred for everybody. New feature, new angle, something new that came as a suggestion from volunteers to make your life as a popcorn kernel just a little bit easier. But it's one of those points. That's another feature to make it touchless, reduce the number of touching items. One of the things too that I don't know if Chris and Rachel have been sharing in other sessions too, but we're working with the potential of possibly receiving a donation of masks, facial coverings for our scouts, in selling popcorn, and possibly containers of Lysol spray as well. We'd like to look into possibly acquiring hand sanitizer too. If we can get that donated, we'd love to pass that along to our salesmen, or maybe Clorox wipes, but we also know those are items in very high demand.
Yeah.
So it's really challenging to make a promise of that. So we've been notified of a firm that might be willing to donate, several thousand masks to us. So we're going to make that ask to then pass it on to our unit. So we would do that probably through the product distribution methods as well. So not a firm promise, but something in the background that if we can make life a little bit easier for you as a popcorn chair and talking to families about keeping people safe, I think the reactions would be very, very positive. So we're hoping to do that.
Anybody else have anything? You're a quiet group.
Is there any, and John, you've kind of spoken to this, and Rachel too, we want as few contact with the product as possible. But if I'm creating a kit, and I probably am going to have somebody help me with that, I suppose we could put gloves on. I mean, would that be enough?
So I have a personal thing for gloves. Gloves are great, okay? Gloves are wonderful. But a lot of people, and I don't know who's going to be helping you, I don't know, a lot of people put gloves on and they feel a sense of security that isn't necessarily accurate. And you put your gloves on and you're working with the product and you itch your eye, you itch your nose, you keep working with the product because you're safe because you have gloves on. But the purpose of what we're doing at that particular point is not necessarily to keep us safe, but to keep them safe. So you put on the gloves, you itch your nose, you touch it, you've ruined the purpose of the gloves. So I'm going to recommend anytime, and John, you might be like, no, Rachel, you're crazy. This is too far. Anytime you're working with the product, I would recommend you have a mask on because the breathing on the product, the spitting on the product, those things is really going to be. And then having the mask on reminds you not to touch your face. So then you're not touching your face and then you're touching the product. Gloves are great if they're used appropriately, but a lot of people just get a false sense of security from the gloves and forget the purpose of them. And then it completely negates every safety standard you're trying to observe by using them. Does that make sense?
Yep. I think the other thing too is a recommendation of having hand sanitizer out at your meeting locations when you're doing distribution and that. and encouraging others to utilize a hand sanitizer before they start grabbing boxes and product and taking their stuff to their homes. You know, those are the practices that we would recommend as well. You know, there's been some discussion a little bit in some other forums about if you do get a table sale opportunity in a storefront, and if you have a Square reader that is hooked to your cell phone, you could Velcro the Square reader to the table so it's kind of exposed and no one's really touching anything. Make it somewhat touchless. The other thing too that I would share is the discussion of possibly, here is something that was shown earlier. You know, this young man, he created a poster of all the products and that sort of stuff to, you know, to promote that COVID-19 concern and that. So we want to be as creative as we can, you know, at all times, and we want to stay safe. So we have to create the opportunities to tell parents that they have the flexibility to do this. If you notice, his poster had no price tags on it. Okay, that's another feature where then someone says, well, tell me about this or that. That's when he throws out the dollar signs. So, you know, the comfort level with how it's going to go, every scout's going to be a little bit different. Every family's going to be a little bit different with their comfort levels in selling popcorn. So when you have a idea that you want to put a threshold on minimum dollars to be sold from a family, I think you have to be careful. You have to share this with your PAC committee members or your troop committee members to talk about why and what will happen if they don't reach that threshold. Sometimes we've had PACs say, you know, they have to sell $300 in order to stay in the PAC. Well, is that really where we want to be? Are we willing to remove someone from the unit if they don't meet that goal? So those are cautionary points that you need to consider too. So if you're going to be setting up kits, you might want to talk to families and make sure they're comfortable in it and tell them we really don't want to have it returned. Just this is a personal goal. If you want to get more product later on, we would rather have you get more product in a week if you run out than take a whole bunch right away. And what you're looking for is product replenishment. But I also know too, you also don't want $1,000 worth of popcorn in your living room for 3 or 4 weeks. So keep that in mind as well. So, but share the load with others, talk to others about, you know, meetings and functions that your dens might be having, face-to-face or virtual, ways for people to pick up product. Some of our PACs and troops, they've used like storage garages in the past for holding product for several weeks at a time. We've talked earlier too, I wouldn't recommend ordering more than 30% of what you sold all last year. So keep that as a benchmark idea as well. So we're being cautious, we're being optimistic, but like we have talked earlier, the last thing we want to do is anybody to get hurt. We want them to stay healthy, we want them to stay safe, we want to practice safe protocols as well. That's really just as important in this part of the sale.
And utilizing the resources on the website and in the app, the door hangers and the business cards, and being able to have those where you just put your scouts information on there. So maybe you have a family who isn't comfortable going door to door and actually talking to people, but walking around and hanging on it, you know, knocking and hanging on a door hanger might be something that the family would be willing to do that might get them, you know, some extra sales, or having business cards with their information on it that they can pass out or send out. So there's the door hanger. Now, I will tell you this, and none of you may run into this issue, but I was getting on last night, just going through things to make sure that I knew where things were before today, and I didn't have any questions myself. I had my husband go to log on to try to buy popcorn from our son. And when he went to the Trails End to shop, it wanted him to buy from Delilah. I don't know who Delilah is, but it would not let him change it. It did not give an option to change to another scout. And it took us a little bit to figure out why. So it's something to do with the cookies or the cache. I don't know. I'm not an IT person, but he had to go clear his internet's cache cookies thing. I don't know. Maybe one of you know what that is. and then it would let him. So if you have somebody that says, well, my grandma tried to buy and it wouldn't let her, or our neighbor tried to buy and it said they had to buy from whoever, I don't know, we got stuck on Delilah for some reason. If you have somebody that can help them to clear that, once he cleared that, then he was able to go in and it took him to the page to put in the Scouts code. That's just something weird that we came up across last night, in case anybody else comes up across that kind of thing. Because it was just weird. I was like, we don't even know a Delilah. Why does it want us to buy from Delilah? It was kind of out in left field. But after he cleared that, it did take it to that. So if you have somebody complaining of that issue, just have them clear whatever it is that makes stuff do that. I'm not the IT person in the family, but it was something like cash or cookies. Somebody shook their head earlier, yes, so I'm assuming you guys know what that is. But it fixed it for them. So that's just one of those little things to know in advance. There's the business card. That's a super cute business card. And again, your name and your Scout code, and then it has the website there. And because you have to print these on your own, you might even be able to, if you have maybe an email that you can set up on the back of it, if you have any questions or you want more information, or if something's not working right, email me at this and we can help you get the sale done or something. Some way to be able to, you know, have a follow-up if they have questions or they have a follow-up. You don't want personal information. You don't necessarily want, you know, addresses or, you know, personal phone numbers or anything. I guess if you're okay with that, I personally wouldn't want to have, you know, my phone number out there for everybody with my kid's name. But
Both
maybe
of,
you could set something.
let me interrupt just a second. Both of these items are available through Vistaprint, which is an online printing company. So these templates are already set up commercially by Trails End at Vistaprint. And there are some helpful hints on how to find that within the Trails End websites for our volunteers to check it out. So the design is pretty basic. You can customize it. You can print as many as you wish. Other people are very creative. They can do the same stuff and go to Office Max or Staples or whatever and get perforated business cards and go that way. We've had some scouts, they've created flyers on their own and they've shared it in their neighborhoods and said, hey, I'm going to be selling popcorn from noon till 3 o'clock and hopefully I'll stop by and see you on Saturday afternoon. If not, here's my information. Well, that was Carson Powell from the Lincoln Heritage District in Ireland at Pack and Troop 130. And he's been in the top 100 for probably the last 4 or 5 years and one of the top sellers in that district. And that was a promotion piece that he and his family created a couple years ago. And one time they told me they were driving through the neighborhood and the neighbor rolled down the window and said, have you been to my house yet? Because I wanted to see you. When they saw him in the neighborhood walking around, knowing he was going to come see him that day. So any type of promotion like this, we don't know where the paybacks are. So if you're utilizing this stuff and it works, be sure and let us know, because those are hints that we can pass on to other people. But these are two pieces from the Trails End has designed. They're pretty basic. You got the gist. But a door hanger versus a business card, you're going to have different levels of success. So we have to be creative. We have to do it different ways. And you know, sometimes we've seen scouts build videos that have been terrific too. So be creative on it and market it.
Now with your creativity, especially as we're doing a lot of this mark like the door hangers and things like that, remember, do not encourage your scouts to put things into mailboxes. If the scouts want to make their own flyer or something like that, we should not be encouraging them to put things into mailboxes. Technically, it is not legal to put things into mailboxes that are not like postal mail. So we don't want our kids going around putting stuff in everybody's mailboxes because technically it's not legal. So make sure they're putting it in the door or using the door hanger or something like that. We don't want to go telling whole packs to put things into mailboxes because that wouldn't be good. The online direct products, my dashboard is not working right now. I can't get on to see any of that except through my son's. But if you log into your Scouts, you can look at the direct online options and see what's there for that. But I don't know about through the Kernel dashboard because mine's broken right now.
So for instance, though, one of the things they've done with Online Direct is they've changed the pricing structure to be almost identical to what our Scouts are selling on the street, which has been good. We would say that, like, for instance, there is like dark chocolate salted caramels at $30 is pretty high because it's a small bag, but the weight's there. So, I can't really pass judgment as to the pricing into things. But the microwave product is available if someone really loves it. But the box is at $25. The salted caramel popcorn is at $25. The popping corn jar is $15. There's unbelievable butter at $15, and blazing hot is at $20. White cheddar's at $20, and chocolatey caramel crunch tin is, I believe, is 10 to $35. But there's also chocolate lovers, a chocolate lovers bundle, and a cheese lovers bundle too. So there's different online products that are available this year. Trails End in the past fluctuated the products that were available online, and I think they're going to try to keep things together. So
the next question is about budgeting. So the unit commission is going to vary a little bit this year based on how you're selling. You would be safe when making your budget to budget at 30%, because the rest of it really depends on how the Scouts sell on what that commission is going to look like, because it's kind of in flux as we go through this. But a 30%, just like we've done before, that 30% commission is going to be a safe place to plan your budget. And then if you get a little more back, it's extra icing on the cake. But 30% is safe to budget with. And somebody mentioned that as you're going and doing door hangers and things like that, make sure you're watching for those no trespassing signs and those no solicitor signs. Don't go onto somebody's property when there's a big sign out there telling you not to. That's not good. We don't want to put our Scouts in that situation. And another reason why we don't want our Scouts going out by themselves, you want to have an adult there with them, making sure that if there is one of those signs that it's adhered to. We don't want somebody complaining that Scouts were walking through their yard or walking up to put something on their door when obviously they were not supposed to. So that's a good thing to make sure that you're watching for as your Scouts are going door to door doing things. And we're at 3:20. 2:20, sorry.
yeah, we're going to have to wrap up here. So we're going to have to wrap up, regroup, and we'll have our Council Popcorn wrap-up meeting in about 10 minutes. So we appreciate your participation. Thank you, Rachel, for your leadership. Thank you, Chris, for your help too. If you were looking for the marketing session, sorry about that. You landed here in our spot. We're glad you stayed. So thanks very much.
Bye.
We'll see you in a little bit. Thanks.